Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And I'm joined today by Adel and Asaël. Adel, can you start by introducing yourself and share a little bit about what you do before we turn to Asaël?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Glab, and thank you for everyone for listening to us. Briefly, I'm the CEO and founder at Workplace. I have engineering, real estate, and technology background, and I specialize in prop tech.
Mhm. And Asaël, please share about yourself.
Yes, so Asaël Akkerman, before Workplace, I worked at Spacewell in a board position responsible for partnerships, and before that, I was partner with Cushman and Wakefield, doing workplace strategies. And together with Adel now, I'm on board with Workplace as a co-founder and chief strategy
Mhm.
officer.
Excellent. Well, Adele, can you start by sharing with us what Workplace is? Like, what is it even as a thing? What kind of a platform does it provide?
Sure. So briefly, the name says a lot about it, right? It's work-placed, and
Mhm.
we're combining work and place. We're solving workplace strategies. If I want to say it in few words, we leverage or help companies leverage employee centric data to drive
Mhm.
strategic workplace decisions. The main purpose is really to increase profitability, but how this is done is by optimizing
Mhm.
productivity and costs. Um, our mission is not just from the company aspect of just like profits wise, but
Mhm.
also improving employees' satisfaction and overall lifestyle and balance. Um, and we have a couple of solutions and how we do this, starting with understanding the employees' experience, perceptions, activities, schedule, and work patterns, and
Mhm.
then driving from this, and in addition to considering companies' strategic objectives, how would your hybrid balance or flexible work arrangement look like? How would your
Mhm.
office layout look like? Which building is more aligned with your requirements or priorities, and just really make the right decisions. And these are some of the tools that are there. It's a suite of solutions actually.
Mhm. So let's think about some of the clients I work with on this hybrid work, remote work policy. So a number of clients, for example, right now I'm working with two law firms, about 100 people each, different law firms, different areas. One is in medical malpractice and other forms of malpractice, another is in complex negotiations. But they both have around 100 staff, and they're trying to figure out their hybrid and remote work policy. So, Asaël, I'm going to punt this question to you. How should they be thinking about using Workplace? Like, what kind of value would it provide for them if they think, well, maybe I should be considering using this tool?
So I think the main value of Workplace is that we're taking a superhuman centric approach. So instead of deciding top down that a senior partner gets a certain square footage and give half of that to management and a quarter to that of to employees, and the sublegals or paralegals are working in open plan, we are actually putting data behind those decisions.
Mm,
So we're asking the super personal questions of your personality. What type of personality do you have
mm,
based on the
mhm,
ocean profile? And who you are as a person, where you work, when you work, how you work are basically the Rosetta Stone questions that we're asking. And
mm,
that gives us a profile. If we then stack those profiles together with the people in that legal firm, we can build up from a personal to an interpersonal and ultimately departmental level and answer the really important questions of how work needs to be scheduled, how work can be planned and executed.
mhm.
And and that's basically the insights in the workplace fabric that has diminished over the past 20 years when middle management
Mm.
was cut out of companies.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit more about why this approach is better than, let's say, just talking to people and doing surveys and focus groups. Like, why would a company not use surveys and focus groups, to answer the same questions and determine the same things? Like, how does Workplace provide a benefit?
So,
Go ahead.
shall I? So, surveys and focus groups are good, but they are good and solid tools. They are a proxy to the complete solution of workplace, of providing a good workplace environment or strategy. And what we've set out to do with Workplace is to identify that complete formula of workplace engagement, workplace experience, and workplace performance. And now we're able to influence a lot of these parameters that are in that formula, and we'll be improving and adding more. So putting up Workplace as a single tool against interviews or surveys is not a fair comparison. I think on points we outperform by miles. But we cannot cover the complete formula.
And if I would add to that also, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. And
Exactly.
when you read through data, you also need to understand the differences and between different data sets and parameters. And this is why we have the filter option that enables you to actually, dissect through this data by all the parameters, including personality profiles like high on conscientiousness or other trait, for example, among many organizational office and personality criteria. The second thing I would add is what matters to you may not matter to me, and companies fail to, in general, really assess or tailor their solutions based on all these differences. For example, if you want to see you may assume you have certain level of innovation at the office or interpersonal culture or other objectives, but the truth is it's not perceived that way, or the truth is employees or part of employees may want more of this or less of that. And being able to read through this data will enable you not just to collect but also to drive decisions and also follow our recommendations, which our algorithm is based on research, like decades of research through other people involved in the process of building this, and as well industry benchmark and best practices.
Yeah, I often think that people often don't know what they don't know. So with surveys and focus groups, it's a very internal view. And one of the reasons I joined Workplace as an industry advisor is because I really like your research-based approach and kind of how you're looking at external benchmarks and using that to inform decision making. So let's say a company is interested in Workplace. Who at the company would actually be the decision maker who would be using Workplace? Like, what would be the process? Would it be the CHRO? Would it be facilities? Would it be the IT? Like, who is the decision maker? Why are they using Workplace? What's the approach?
I can start, and then I said if you want to add to it, but briefly, this falls mainly under corporate real estate as a department, or corporate real estate asset management, what they call it usually. However, our solution caters to also, or this is as overarching department, but you also have specifically the people-oriented departments and the place-oriented departments. So whether it's HR or real estate, and one of the so these are the three main profiles. Depends on the company governance, how these are distributed, and the responsibilities. And actually, after COVID, there was a shift on who makes the workplace decisions, and it kind of became a blurred area. So as it went from real estate more towards HR, and part of the problem is this gap of knowledge and gap of understanding what workforce decision impact workplace decisions and vice versa. And one of the key problems we solve is actually streamline that process and enable to bridge that knowledge gap.
Okay, so let's say someone in corporate real estate or HR, they're interested in the data that Workplace would provide. So they say, okay, oh, yeah, let's take a look at Workplace. Let's start an engagement. what would it actually look like? Describe an engagement from the beginning, through the middle stage, through the end. What are people actually getting as a result of signing up with Workplace?
Sal, should you?
Well, no, so they would be getting measurable workplace outcomes. So rather than smearing out a workplace investment over multiple things that you might think have an impact, we can actually measure what has more impact than other elements. So we would be able to laser focus the investment that companies are doing in building an engaged workforce or elevating workplace experience. And we're talking about Workplace as a digital interview platform, and that's one axis of it. But we also have the more quantitative occupancy measurement, in which we can do behavioral mapping. So so we measure occupancy, we measure utilization, which is really quantitative data with a qualitative overview, and then we can put that quantitative data and the insights from the quantitative data through the qualitative validation of an interview platform, making the overall solution very robust. I hope that makes sense.
I would add to this that you have different pain points as well. So what HR depends again on the function and role of each department. But if an HR is more worried or have a problem more with retention, others may have it more with attracting employees, especially with with the flexible work now with the newer generation. Wants more. I mean, the trend of quitting, right? Sure. So, and real estate has a different priority and different pain points. So our solution has metrics for each of these pain points, and because people, place, and process can't be segregated, they are very interdependent. So their alignment is important. So some metrics actually apply to different pain points. So defining this is very important, so you can understand and be able to read the data. And I want to highlight one key metric, which is what we call alignment score, because a lot of research now is talking about a human-centric metric, and no one has defined it. But Workplace is not about any more number of people and meters and per meter square like it used to. It's not density. It's not even meter square per employee. We're moving really towards what's the most aligned office or workplace. And now you can find 100 meters square for 300 employees, for example, but they work either partly remotely, partly flexible, partly from third-party workplace, which is also something we account for. So it's not just office and home, but it's also third-party workplace, so co-working and so on.
Now, what do you actually measure? So you're talking about the data that people get. So you talk about personalities, you talk about quantitative. What are the actual inputs that you are putting into Workplace? Like, where is the data actually coming from? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So you have two user data. One is employees, which start from their personal profiles that includes their personality. It's a quick test actually, and then we generate the outputs of the personality and account this for other analysis. And then they move to what we call workplace profile, where they fill out details about how the experience, the sentiment, the culture, the activities, the schedule between home and office as well. So it's not just focused on office. So we cater to all edge cases, including fully remote teams. So if you have even everyone working remotely, do you actually need an office, or maybe consider a third-party workplace, right? Like a co-working space. So they input this data, and as Asaël was saying, like, who do you work with? How much time is spent on each activity? What is the current type of activities and schedule versus your preferred? What are the reasons why you prefer working remotely, and so on? So all this comes from the employee. Then the company actually inputs their strategic objectives, their requirements. For example, are they moving to a new building? Are they considering a building or a shared office or completely fully dedicated office? Do they want to give dedicated rooms for certain employees? Do they want to have more autonomy or more, control, or more results oriented cultures? So these are the strategic and objective that the company inputs, and then our algorithm basically analyzes all of this and provides the recommendations. And I'm not just saying general recommendations, like we actually go as deep as this employee, based on his profile, based on the objectives you've assigned. And objectives can be assigned on individual level, or department level, or company level. So it gives a lot of flexibility to any profile of companies and any style of management.
So it sounds like,
Yeah.
go ahead, Asaël, you want to add something?
No, I was just thinking through in this podcast, why did I join Workplace? And I think I joined because of the fact that DGW did really groundbreaking work in the 1980s of last century, with really robust and scientific solutions that became sort of a cookie cutter approach to workplace strategy in the 90s and the zeros. So ultimately, we were doing copied and ever diluting projects that delivered less and less value, and with point solutions trying to declare the complete formula. And this is why we're building a complete mechanism of multiple vantage points, qualitative and quantitative, in an effort to really kickstart again that really robust, scientific, evidence-based approach of work and place. Because it's such an interesting time. There's so much happening. Utilization is super low. The return to office is forced, but there's no data substantiating a return to office. There's quiet quitting. There's more generations than ever on the work floor. The new generations are having complete different demands and requirements than the older generations. So it's a cocktail that is becoming more complex by the day, with solutions that were becoming more standardized by the day, and that gap led Adel, me, and our advisory board member Nick Nunnington as a professor to kickstart this, and later we found you to help us toughen up the approach and make sure that everything that we're doing is data driven and evidence based. So there's my why, at least.
Excellent. So it sounds like, as a result of deploying Workplace, whether it's HR or facilities, whoever is in charge of place and people, what they would get is a determination of the best time, place, whatever, for each individual worker to work. And then that's kind of how they're relating to employees and how they're relating to the leadership team, to the C-suite or the rest of the C-suite, is that they can give an evidence-based answer of like, why are you adopting this policy rather than any other policy? So it's kind of giving responses to stakeholders at all levels and a data-driven, justified decision-making process. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, exactly. I would maybe add to this having a tool or a solution that would help you come up with scenarios, like, because utilization will also drive and impact the space configuration. Even there's no tool in the market even to date that tells you, okay, if I want to have 50 employees in the next 2 years, let's say you're a scale up and now you just raised your Series A and now you're going to recruit another 100 person in the next year or two. So how do you accommodate for these people and what you already have, or if you even want to make a move, right? So we enable these kind of tactics and simulations. And this also drive as well portfolio optimization, because if you can create different scenarios and different offices and then assign different employees to these different offices and these different scenarios, and then see what kind of space you would end up with, by also assigning different utilization or work arrangements. Like, I'm gonna have the schedule as is. I'm gonna maybe consider whatever the employees prefer. I want to consider what we recommended for you. So there are all these different scenarios that enables you to kind of play and see what works best and how this would represent eventually in a space, budget, and plan.
Okay, excellent. Very forward-looking strategy. Well, great. This was very helpful. Thank you very much. Are there any last words that you wish to share before we wrap up?
I would say listen to your employees because it's all about people. Business is about people, and workplace is we give a lot of attention to our homes when we make these selections, but for our workplaces, companies, it's all some companies, it's all about what the top management wants without any considerations to who we are as individuals who are building this company itself. So make the right decisions. That's all.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think one thing I might want to add is that we've just launched a month and a half ago. We're a growing platform, and we told you about our aim. And what we're going to do is we're going to add more functionalities, more proxies to make that workplace formula more robust, adding more tools, adding more insights, and in the future, we're hoping to work with each and every one of you listening to this podcast today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you check the show and leave a review. It helps others discover the show and helps us improve the show.